The grim prediction that Britain will have the worst performing economy in the world. It's from the International Monetary Fund looking at advanced nations. Labour says it's down to the government, but Downing Street says even the IMF has said its economic policy is now on the right track.
The IMF's chief economist came out today and said that their previous predictions had been wrong. So, these are predictions. What I'm interested in facts and reality.
Also this lunchtime, ambulance workers announce a new strike date as the UK prepares for a widespread day of industrial action tomorrow. Is your 9-year-old watching porn? A new report into how many are and what impact it's having. And her life's work, why the Princess of Wales's priority is helping young children.
We're starting by highlighting how we develop during early childhood and why these years matter so much.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. There was good news and bad from the International Monetary Fund in its latest forecast. The global organisation has predicted inflation around the world has peaked and the global slowdown will be shallower than first feared. The bad news then, it also predicts the UK will be the only country to see its economy contract. Why? Well, that's down to a number of factors, including rising mortgage costs, increased taxes and worker shortages. Could the forecast be wrong? The government hopes so. With the details, here's our political correspondent, Harry Houghton.
Why are we the only developed country going into recession?
It's only a forecast, but the prediction for the UK is stark.
If the Conservatives tank the economy...
And this morning, ministers were under pressure to explain why the prospects for our economy are so much worse than the rest of the world. The IMF has upgraded its forecasts for most leading economies and predicts global growth of 2.9%. But below every other G7 nation sits the UK, with its forecast downgraded and the economy predicted to shrink by 0.6%. The IMF says it's down to tighter fiscal and monetary policies, unusually high UK energy prices and a shortage of workers not seen in other countries.
The outlook for the UK this year is grim. Inflation's high, interest rates have been going up, taxes are going up, public spending cuts are on the way. It's going to be a painful year.
The government points out forecasts have been wrong before.
Well, what we've seen is that the IMF's predicted lots of things and they've turned out not to be true. In fact, over the last couple of years, the UK has grown faster than, say, Germany, Japan and other countries, in which the IMF had predicted was the other way around. In fact, the IMF's chief economist came out today and said that their previous predictions had been wrong. So, these are predictions. What I'm interested in facts and reality.
But Labour says government policy is to blame.
The question that the people of our country are now asking is this: are me and my family better off after 13 years of Conservative government? The answer is no.
Some Conservative MPs want to see tax cuts to boost growth.
My concern is the British government, whilst I understand what they're doing, they've got to recognise there are certain key areas of business which does need to have a greater level of tax reduction, easing on it, and then individuals, of course, in due course.
The focus now is on the Chancellor and his spring budget, as he tries to stop this forecast from becoming a reality. Harry Houghton, ITV News.
The IMF's predictions about the UK economy comes as new research shows the reality for shoppers faced with the rising cost of food. With the figures and how people are changing what they buy, here's Shihab Khan.
You might have noticed the costs of your weekly shop has soared, and the latest numbers on grocery inflation has hit a record 16.7% in the last 4 weeks. That's the highest level since 2008. It is also a significant increase from the 14.4% seen in December. with prices rising the fastest for things like milk, eggs and dog food. Kantar, a data analytics company, has looked at those figures and estimates that households around the country face an extra £788 on their annual shopping bills. Supermarkets are, at the moment, competing for market share, and with costs rising, people are turning to supermarket own labels. The sales of those products has grown 9.3%. That's a huge rise compared to branded products, which were only up 1%. Tesco remains the largest supermarket with more than 27% of the market share, and Sainsbury's and Asda make up the top three. Of all the supermarkets, it's Aldi that is growing the fastest. It is the fastest growing grocer for the fourth month in a row. Its sales are up almost 27% year on year. With inflation still high, consumers are likely to keep feeling the impact of this for some time longer.
Our economics editor Joel Hills joins me now. Let's get back to the IMF predictions. What do you make of them and the government's response to it?
Well, economic forecasting is a bit of a mug's game. The one thing you can say about these forecasts is they won't come to pass in exactly the way that they're set out, but they're credible and they're plausible and they're actually in line with a lot of what a lot of British forecasts are saying is likely to happen to the UK economy. There are four reasons principally why the UK is expected to do so badly this year and next year. That is because of the size of the workforce, which bizarrely is smaller today than it was before COVID. It is because we are highly dependent on natural gas to generate energy. We have North Sea reserves, but we're a net importer. That means we have to accept the market price, and that's more so the case than is in Europe. Interest rates, because inflation is looking persistent, the Bank of England is having to raise interest rates. It's having to do so again on Thursday, higher than perhaps we've seen elsewhere. That is having an impact on people's incomes. And 3 years to the day since we left the EU, Brexit, the IMF is absolutely clear about this, is another one of the factors which explains the underperformance of the UK economy. Now, the government is pointing out that, the IMF's record in the past is not flawless. These things may not come to pass in the way that has been set out. But obviously, it's under enormous pressure to explain why the data supports the view of many people's lived experience, which is that living standards in the UK are falling and we're not doing very well versus everybody else.
Joel Hills, thank you very much for that. Thank you. Almost 34 years after the Hillsborough disaster, police chiefs say that police failures were the main cause of the tragedy. There was also an apology from the National Police Chiefs Council in response to a damning report published 5 years ago into the deaths of 97 football fans. The government is yet to respond to that report. Martha Fairley is here. A big moment today for the Hillsborough families. What exactly did police chiefs say?
Well, today's response is from the National Police Chiefs Council and the College of Policing, which sets the standards for policing in England and Wales. The heads of both organisations have apologised to the families of the 97 football fans who died as a result of a crush during the match between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest in 1989. They admit there were police failures on the day and in the aftermath, and they say they have made changes to make sure those errors are never repeated. Now, National Police Chiefs Council Chair Martin Hewitt has apologised, saying, as police officers, we come to work to keep the public safe, and as a service, we failed to do this at Hillsborough. I am deeply sorry for the tragic loss of life and for the pain and suffering that the families of the 97 victims experienced on that day and in the many years that have followed. Now, in a 53-page report that couldn't be published earlier because of legal processes, the police bodies detail changes that have been made since the disaster. That includes all forces in England and Wales signing up to a charter for families bereaved through public tragedy, which says police must acknowledge any mistakes made and must not defend the indefensible. And a new code of practice for police information and record management, which has been agreed. And there will also be a review of the police code of ethics, with candour being a key theme of that.
Martha Fairley, thank you very much. Thank you. An inquest opening into the death of a dog walker in Surrey has found the victim died from multiple bites to her neck. Natasha Johnson was killed in Caterham on January the 12th. She was 28. Police officers seized 8 dogs at the scene. None were banned breeds. More than 2,000 jobs are at risk at Tesco. The supermarket giant has announced big changes, including shutting remaining counters and hot delis, changing management roles in store and closing a number of pharmacies. And Tesco has agreed to buy the high street stationery brand Paperchase, but not its shops or workforce. Paperchase went into administration this morning. Tesco's announcement means Paperchase stores still face closure and hundreds of workers could lose their jobs. Next, this lunchtime, are you ready for tomorrow? It's likely some part of your day will be impacted in the biggest day of industrial action most of us can remember. For the first time in these disputes over pay and working conditions, teachers in England are going on strike. So too are train drivers, civil servants, university lecturers, bus drivers from 7 different trade unions. Our political correspondent Carl Dinnan joins me now from Westminster. Carl, the big question, but what can we expect tomorrow?
Well, a significant amount of chaos for a significant number of people. As you've said, that includes anybody who's got school-aged children, anybody who's potentially planning to take a train anywhere, included amongst those civil servants who will be striking, or border force staff, so anyone who's planning to take a plane anywhere. What we don't know, though, is just the full extent of the disruption, because particularly when it comes to schools, those teachers who are striking don't have to have told their heads that they're going to be taking the day off. So head teachers who the Department of Education has asked to keep schools open to the extent that they can don't know necessarily which staff they will have and which staff they won't. They have been asked to try and keep school open for vulnerable children, children of critical workers and children who are sitting public exams. But beyond that, they don't know who they'll be able to cater for.
Carl Dinnan, thank you. New documents show just how bad things have become in ambulance services around the country. One trust has reported a 5-fold increase in people ringing 999 to find out where their ambulance is. And another has linked deaths to a lack of resources. The union representing paramedics has written to the Health Select Committee saying this evidence must be considered when deciding their pay. Our deputy political editor, Anushka Asthana, joins me now. Anushka, some shocking findings.
Yeah, that's right. Over the past week, ambulance trusts all over England have essentially held board meetings, and out of that have come hundreds and hundreds of pages that I've been looking through. And as you say, they paint a picture of just how bad things got this winter. You mentioned that rise in the number of people calling 999, not to say I need an ambulance, but to say where is my ambulance? And so, for example, the West Midlands Ambulance Trust said their repeat 999 calls rose from 5% pre-COVID to 25%, a quarter of all calls. They also said that ambulance delays in handing over patients meant that the number of patients being dealt with in one shift had almost halved over halved, from 7 to more like 3. And in the northwest, they actually linked, as you said, potential patient deaths to a lack of resources, highlighting 5 deaths in particular. Now, on top of that, these papers show massive problems with retention of staff all over the country. And they also talk about strike days. And one thing that the GMB union want to highlight is that most of them say that on the strike days, deals were very good. That's why they have written this letter to the Health Select Committee to take all of this on board. Now, I should say that sources tell me over the past 2 weeks, things have got slightly better. And of course, yesterday, the Prime Minister put forward a plan to try to deal with a lot of this.
Anushka Asthana, thank you very much. And just to let you know as well that in terms of future strikes, Unison has announced this morning that there will be another ambulance strike of thousands of ambulance workers. That strike action, that industrial action, will take place on February the 10th. Next, is your 9-year-old watching porn? If they are not alone. A new report published by the Children's Commissioner has found that 1 in 10 children in England have viewed pornography by the age of 9. Half of those surveyed have seen it by the time they hit 13. Perhaps most worryingly, half of young people believe girls expect sex to involve physical aggression. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by our guest this lunchtime, Richard Collard from the NSPCC. He is Associate Head of Child Safety Online Policy. Thank you very much for coming in to talk to us about this. How do we stop this, or can't we?
Obviously, it's really concerning to see so many children who are accessing pornography, and we need to make sure that this does stop. And the Online Safety Bill, which is making its way through the House of Lords at the moment, is the vehicle to do this. It will put an obligation on technology companies and porn companies to actually stop children viewing this type of content.
You say it's the vehicle. Will it work? Will it be enough in that bill?
So at the moment, it definitely needs to be strengthened. There are ways at the moment that Ofcom has powers to try and get porn companies to increase their standards for age verification, but they won't have minimum standards at the moment, so that needs to be built into the regime. And we need to make sure that where government is considering introducing senior manager accountability at the moment and criminal sanctions for tech bosses that fail to protect children, this needs to make sure it maps onto the dynamics of porn companies as well, because we're seeing from the report today the horrific amount of pornography that children are seeing, and also the fact that some of this is incredibly violent pornography, so we need to make sure that this is tackled.
How do you even begin to start a conversation to talk to your child? You know, we're talking about some children as young as 9, about what they might have seen.
It's obviously incredibly awkward to have these type of conversations, but what the stats show us is these children are seeing this content regardless. So it really needs to ensure that we have a parent or a teacher that can start to have these conversations with children, yes, at a young age, but making sure that they can contextualise what they're seeing. So parents need to be able to have open and transparent conversations with their children and start to talk about the dynamics that they're seeing, because otherwise we'll have accounts like you mentioned where children are starting to have misogynistic views.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I just want to come on to, about this statistic in the report that half of young people believe girls expect sex to involve physical aggression. How do we turn the tide on that if that is how some boys now think?
It's incredibly problematic, and I think there are a number of actors who need to take a role. Government needs to legislate and make sure it's a strong online safety bill. The technology companies and porn companies need to act to stop children accessing this type of content. And I think it's worth saying as well that this often wasn't children seeking out this type of content. The most frequently mentioned platform that children found this type of content on was Twitter.
Goodness.
That's a site where people are going to learn to play. So technology companies have a role, but so do parents. They need to be having these open conversations.
Richard Collard, we're running out of time, but thank you so much for coming in. Thank you. The actor Ava Green has said having her text messages read in the High Court has been humiliating. She's suing a production company over her $1 million fee for a film that never got made. Danny Sinha is outside the High Court. What's been said so far today, Danny?
Well, this was Ava Green's second day in the witness box, and quite clearly an emotional day for her. She did, as you have said, find it humiliating when her private text messages were read out in court. And let's just give you a flavour of some of those. In one message to a crew member, she called the film a nightmare and said, "We had to get out." Another one, "I'm playing a game with these evil producers. Just play dumb. Please say you heard nothing." Now, the prosecution says all this does is it proves the fact that she didn't want to see the film any further. She didn't want to be part of it and wanted it to fail. She denies all of that and says she had every intention of fulfilling her contract. In fact, she says it was the production company who were incompetent and unprepared. And she wants to get her fee back, that she was promised $1 million. That also translates as around £810,000, despite the film being cancelled. Interestingly here, though, we have the production company, White Lantern Films, issuing a counter-claim, saying it was she who deliberately sabotaged the film. Now, a lot, of course, is at stake here, not just in terms of money, but also in terms of reputation. The case continues.
Danny, thank you. The Princess of Wales says her new campaign to help young children get better futures is her life's work. Kate launched the Shaping Ours initiative last night. Here's Sally Biddle.
Everything was A-list at BAFTA headquarters in London last night as the Princess of Wales launched her campaign to champion the first 5 years of a child's life. Among friends, charities, experts and celebrities, Kate spoke passionately about the importance of early child development.
Shaping Us is a long-term campaign, and we're starting by highlighting how we develop during early childhood and why these years matter so much in terms of shaping who we become. As the campaign progresses, we'll explore in more depth the importance of a child's social and emotional world, the significance of relationships, and the impact of the surroundings and experiences a child is exposed to during these formative years.
Her Royal Highness has also curated celebrity ambassadors to spread the message beyond her network.
The saying "it takes a village" is really true. You know, whether you're an aunt or an uncle or a sister, you know, however that looks, a friend, you know, it might be that the way it was with my mum, where she was raising me alone and everybody sort of mucked in.
There's lots of pillars to a child's life, and especially within those earliest years, but if one of them is inspiration and inspirational people, then if that's the role that we can play, I think it's important that I play my part because it is something I'm passionate about.
Awareness of the project is starting with this short film screened in cinemas from Friday. Shaping Us has been described as Kate's life's work, 10 years in the making. This, like childhood, the first step in a long journey. Sally Biddulph, ITV News.
Lizzie Robinson is in Leeds, where the Princess of Wales is also launching the project. Lizzie.
Yes, Nina, the Princess of Wales has spent the last decade researching childhood development, believing that the first 5 years of our lives can go on to impact the rest of our lives. And we're told she's not championing this issue because she's a mother to George, Charlotte and Louis. It stems right back to those early years when she first married into the royal family, where she saw some of the hardest social challenges firsthand, whether that was addiction, violence, homelessness, and how those could be traced back to the early years of a person's life. Speaking to those closest to the Duchess, they say that she wants to make this issue, this public campaign, her life's work going forward.
Lizzie Robinson in Leeds, thank you very much. That's all from us here for now. Mary's here at 6:30 from everyone. Bye-bye.